Last week we started talking about equations of lines and slopes of lines, how to find the slope and how to graph them. This week we wanted to expand on that a little bit more, look at specific equations of lines and how you're going to find them and then how you're going to graph them, and also interpreting the slope in the context of the real world. In this class, and by this class I mean 143, not 043, we care a lot about interpreting the slope and understanding what it means in the context of a problem. So you'll see that question a lot on a lot of your homework, and I'm assuming on your exam as well. What does the slope mean? Interpret it, explain it, things like that. So we said before that when we have a line, we have this thing called the slope, which we called m. And as far as formulas go, we had y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Or put kind of more simply maybe, change in y over change in x. And we had said that if the slope was positive, it means reading left to right, the line goes up. If the slope was negative, it means the line goes down, reading it left to right. Now we wanted to actually look at some equations of lines. We're going to look at one in particular. And they're just formal equations that we can kind of look at and recognize our line and what it means. The first one is what's called slope-intercept form. And the equation is y equals mx plus b. As far as naming goes, all things being equal, mathematicians can be kind of boring. This is called slope-intercept form because it's the form of the line that gives you the slope and an intercept. And we see that we know m stands for slope. In the equation, there's the slope right there. That means by process of elimination, this is the intercept. And all that really means is it's the place where the line crosses an axis. Meaning if I have a line like this, that's the x-axis, that's the y-axis. So these are the two intercepts. There's an x-intercept and a y-intercept. And the problem is the equation doesn't necessarily tell me which intercept that is. But if we look and kind of think about it, right here on this intercept, my x value is equal to 0. If I make x equal to 0 right here, I get y equals b, which means that point right there. Which just means this intercept is the y-intercept. But now, to kind of see how we use this, suppose we have the equation y equals 3x plus 2. I want to graph it. I start by plotting the intercept. I know 2 is the y-intercept, so I start right at the origin and I go up 2. Now I have a point. Now I use my slope. My slope is 3, and we know all slopes are fractions, so that's really 3 over 1, which means I go up 3, 1, 2, 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. And now, I don't draw it perfectly straight, but now I can actually see my line. So this equation, this slope-intercept, just makes it really easy for us to understand what the line is doing, how it's changing, its slope, and it gives us an intercept. But then we can do more with it. We can do the basic graphing thing, and you will graph a lot of lines here, but then there's also using it in the context of a problem. Meaning, say we have something like this. Let's see. I rent a scooter. It costs $25 to rent for 2 days, and $45 to rent for 4 days. Find an equation that that models this. And we're going to solve more problems after this, kind of expanding on this question right here, but we'll start with this. I rent a scooter. It costs $25 to rent for 2 days and $45 to rent for 4 days. Find an equation that models this. Now we have to kind of assume that this is a linear function. I didn't state it right here mostly because I didn't want to write it out. But we'll assume that this is a linear function here. And so somehow I want to come up with an equation, y equals mx plus b, where I have to find m and b, and then I'll have an equation to model that. Well, let's see. I know m is the slope, and I know the equation for slope. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. What that means is I need to find 2 points in that problem that I can call x1, y1, and x2, y2. Then I can plug in and get that. But right here we can see I kind of get 2 points. After 2 days, my cost is $25. That's a point. When time is 2, cost is 25. After 4 days, the cost is $45. That's a point. After 4 days, cost is 45. Now I have 2 points. Now I can get my slope. M is equal to y2, 45, minus x2, 25, over 4 minus 2. 45 minus 25 is 20. 4 minus 2 is 2. 20 over 2 is 10. Or 10 over 1. We write the 10, but understand it's a slope, so it's a fraction. Well, now I have an m. So now I can kind of rewrite this equation, put my m in. Y equals 10x plus b. But now the way this works is, I have my m, but I'm still not done until I get my b. So I need a little algebraic trick to get this to work. What I do is, to get b, I need an x and a y that are related that I can plug in. But I have that right here. Just pick one of these points. I'll use this one. When x is 2, so 10 times 2 plus b is equal to y, which is 25. All I did was replace x and y with an xy. I could have used these two, it doesn't matter. I just picked the smaller one. 10 times 2 is 20, so I get 25 equals 20 plus b. Now, 25 is equal to 20 plus b. If I subtract the 20 over, I get 5 equals b. Now again, I can rewrite my equation. Y equals 10x plus 5. And now I have an equation that models that. There's a lot that I can do with this now. And again, we'll go through a few different types of questions that you can be asked, because the different things you get asked vary by the problem. Well, first off, in the context of the problem, what does the 10 and the 5 mean? We know 10 is the slope, so in the context of this problem, what does it mean? There's actually a really easy way to do this, as long as we understand what slope is. I had said last week, I actually prefer just writing delta y over delta x, which means change in y over change in x. The reason I like that is because then, to figure out the context of that 10 in this problem, well, what's y? Y, we had a point like 225. Y is the cost. So it's the change in the cost over the change in x. What was x? Days. And there's my slope. It's the change in the cost over the change in days. If I kind of put that in better sounding English now, that means the change in the cost to rent the scooter each day. If I want to put the numbers in there, the cost changes by $10 each day. And again, there's literally 10 over each day, so 1 day. 10 over 1, that's my slope. And it's the change in the cost over the change in the days. Again, grammatically, there's different ways to say this, but you're literally just saying change in y over change in x. Just make sure when writing it, you somehow mention change. Slope means change, and there's this understanding that your slope is a rate of change that we're going for. Okay. Other things you can get asked. If I decide to rent the scooter for 7 days, how much does it cost? All that really means is x, the number of days I rented it, clearly I'm going to have to get rid of this marker after this class, is equal to 7. 7 days. Then I just plug in y equals 10 times 7 plus 5. 10 times 7 is 70 plus 5, 75. How much does it cost to rent it for 7 days? $75. Maybe I'd say this. Suppose I go on vacation and I rented the scooter. It cost $55. How many days did I rent it for? Well, now if I give you the cost, that's y. So y is equal to 55. Now I replace y. 55 equals 10x plus 5. Solve for x now. Subtract the 5 on both sides. 55 minus 5 is 50 equals 10x. Divide the 10. X equals 50 over 10, which is 5. So I rented, the cost $55, which means I rented it for 5 days. And there's this idea here on any problem, once you find M and B, then it boils down to they tell you X, you plug it in to get Y, or they tell you Y, you plug it in to get X. Those are the only two things you can solve. The last thing maybe that we've left off, what does this 5 mean? Well, we know it's the intercept, but what does that mean? Graphically, that means, really quickly, because this video is getting rather long, I have an intercept of 5 and a slope of 10, so my line looks like this. That slope, that intercept right there is that point, the point 0.05. So what does that mean? That means I rented it for 0 days and it costs $5. Which really just means what? That's like the cost you have to pay to rent it. You pay $5 to rent the scooter, and then it's an additional $10 per day. And that again is kind of what we're going for here. The ability to read a problem, say, okay, this is linear, so I need an equation, y equals mx plus b. Now I use this formula to get m. Now I plug in a point to get b. Now I use the formula that I just created to solve other problems. And there's a lot of information we can get out of this. Given how long this thing already is, my videos on YouTube have to be limited to 15 minutes. That's why I usually make several. If you would like me to do more examples, I know again this week I did not just pull up your lab because I'm going to give you several of them. And there aren't many problems on a few of them. So I figured make one up here and then just let you work through the ones on the lab. But if you would like me to do more examples, either specific ones from the labs you're going to do, or you just want me to make more up so you can see more worked out, then just let me know and I'll gladly do that.